format for everybody. So I appreciate everybody's patience and understanding as we kind of work through this. As I mentioned in an email earlier today, there may be a couple of bumps and bruises on the way, but hopefully we can get through this together and we can have a successful meeting. So excited to use the platform and excited for Raw Strategic to help us facilitate these meetings. So with that, I'm gonna jump right in. So for those of you on the phone, I'll be mentioning the slide number as I move forward through the presentation. So if you have had a chance to either print that presentation out or have it on your computer, you can kind of follow along with where we're at in the presentation. So moving to slide 2, just want to talk a little bit about the meeting agenda tonight. So I'm going to talk about the purpose, why we're here this evening. We've had some changes in staff recently, both in Region 6 and within my unit, the Intergovernmental Salmon Management Unit. So kind of want to update everybody on that. We'll talk a little bit about the North of Falcon process, and then remind everybody update everybody on the 2020 Grace Harbor salmon forecast, touch a little bit on management objectives, and then I'm going to throw it to Mike, and he's going to go through a model summary for everyone, and then we'll open it up to fishery comments and suggestions. So moving on to slide 3, the purpose of the meeting. So the purpose of tonight is to prepare for the 2020 North of Falcon process. The staff is here to provide information needed for the public to engage with meaningful input in that North of Falcon process. And we're here to answer questions about some of that information and take your fishery suggestions and proposals as well as we move forward throughout the process. Moving on to slide 4, staff introductions. So my name is Chad Herring. I am the South Coast Fishery Policy Lead. I work in the statewide salmon management unit. My supervisor was Kurt Hughes. He was the state salmon and steelhead manager. He has taken another position with the agency, and that position is vacant at this time. So I'm reporting directly to Kyle Addix, who is the intergovernmental salmon manager. So I am headquarters staff based in the region. In terms of the region, we have a new regional director over about the past year and a half or so, Larry Phillips. We've also had some turnover in the regional fish program manager. That now position belongs to James Losey. Just in terms of hatchery staff here, Randy Aho is our Region 6 hatchery reform and operations manager. When it comes to fish program for Grace Harbor, our district biologist is Mike Scharf, and his area biologists are Kim Figler-Barnes and Kurt Holt. So moving on to slide 5, salmon don't honor political boundaries during their migration. So salmon fishery planning must happen at a number of jurisdictional levels. The Pacific Salmon Treaty sets limits on catch and interceptions of salmon from Southeast Alaska to southern US, primarily Washington and Oregon. As quotas are set for those fisheries each year, those catches must be factored in as they affect numbers of fish returning to Washington. Fisheries in the exclusive economic zone off the west coast of Washington to California are set by the Pacific Fishery Management Council. Fisheries in inside waters are planned through the North of Falcon process under the legal framework of US v. Washington and US v. Oregon. Moving on to slide 6, the North of Falcon process. Kind of the North of Falcon process in the nutshell is we forecast beginning in about, we start working on these in December and finalize them there at the end of February, forecasting the abundance of each stock. Then we determine if there is a harvestable surplus of those stocks. Fisheries are modeled to determine which stocks are constraints and what stocks we have opportunities on. We predict what we will catch, looking at different fishery proposals that you folks submit to us. And then depending on the area, we negotiate with the treaty tribes and other states. So that's kind of the North of Falcon process there in a nutshell. In terms of the meeting schedules for the 2020 North of Falcon process, it kicked off here February 28th with the statewide salmon forecast and fishery opportunity meeting that was held in the office building 2 there at the Capitol campus on February 28th. The next meeting was the Pacific Fishery Management Council. That happened March 3rd through the 9th down in Roanoke Park, California. At this meeting, this is where the 3 ocean options, the high, the mid, and the low option are proposed and accepted to move forward through for use for the rest of the North of Falcon process. We had our last in-person public meeting this year for the North of Falcon process was the Willapa Bay Public Fisheries discussion. That was held on March 12th down in Raymond, Washington. We had the North of Falcon 1 meeting that we typically would hold there in Lacey. That was done via live stream, and the link for that can be found on the website that I'll provide you folks with the address, the link to later. That happened on March 16th. Last night was the public hearing for ocean salmon management options, those options that came out of this PFMC 1 meeting. That was held via webinar. We're here tonight, March 28th, for the Grays Harbor Public Fisheries discussion, doing that via Zoom, as mentioned. As we kind of look forward on the calendar, we have a Willapa Bay Advisory meeting and public input on March 26th, this Thursday. That will be done via conference call. Then we will have the North of Falcon 2 meetings. These are the meetings that typically take place in Linwood. We'll have that March 31st. Those meetings will be live streamed, and you can find more information about that here on the link I'll give you in just a second. April 2nd will be our Grays Harbor Salmon Advisory Group meeting with public input. That also will be via conference call. And then the whole process kind of wraps up in terms of a final fishery proposal to move forward with April 5th through 10th. The Pacific Fishery Management Council meeting number 2. This year, that will also be done via webinar. And so you can find the link here. This is the link to our North of Falcon webpage on the WDFW website. It has all the information, handouts, meeting materials. You know, there'll be some of these recordings and stuff will be posted on this public meetings website, so you can get to that by following this link. I didn't get a chance to update this. They have shortened this link. Now you can just type in NOF here right after this / and that will take you right to the North of Falcon webpage. And then you can click on the public meetings link, and that will take you to that public meetings schedule. You can also find a bunch of other information about North of Falcon by following that website. So in terms of when we're going through North of Falcon, there's another process, our legal rulemaking process, that's kind of happening in the background, and that's that's governed by the Administrative Procedures Act. And really, the Administrative Procedures Act has 3 parts to it. You have a 101 here. That basically what the 101 is it's our filing to the public or notice to the public that, hey, we're thinking about making some changes to rules. And that was done for Willapa Bay and Grays Harbor here in January on these dates. Then we have a set number of time, and it's a minimum time of 45 days before we move to the second piece, which is the 102. Now the 102 will be our proposed regulations. So that's where we say, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing, and it's the public notification of what those proposals will be. Now that kicks in the public comment period, and that culminates after a minimum time of 35 days with a public hearing. We hold that public hearing and we collect all those written comments, and they can come into the rules coordinator in a variety of different ways. And then that will culminate in what's called the CR 103. Our CR 103 is the final rulemaking package for the year, and it coincides with another document, the Concise Explanatory Statement, or the CES, which is basically the legal justification for why we're making those rule changes. After 14 days of that being filed, it's published to the Washington State Register, and it becomes effective in terms of Washington Administrative Code 31 days after filing. So moving on to slide 10, I talked a little bit earlier in the meeting schedule side about the 3 ocean options resulting from that March 3rd through 9th PFMC meeting. The high, mid, and low options for 2020 fisheries are represented here in this table, just for non-treaty. The Chinook TAC options, the TAC is total allowable catch. In the high option, you have 30,000 for non-treaty commercial troll, 30,000 for recreational, for a total of 60,000 Chinook in the high option, 22,875 for commercial troll, and 125 for recreational, for a total of 45,000 Chinook in the mid option. And in the low option this year, it is all ocean fisheries or non-treaty ocean fisheries closed. I should point out that options this year are for coho to be marked selective in those marine areas. In terms of the coho total allowable catch, under the high option, you'd have 5,600 fish available in the commercial troll, 29,400 in the recreational, for a total of 35,000, 2,500 in non-treaty commercial troll, 22,500 in recreational, for a total of 25,000 in the mid option. And once again, in the low option, it's for non-treaty ocean fisheries to be closed. So moving forward to slide 11, our 2020 Grays Harbor forecasts. For the Chehalis Basin, we have a forecast estimated forecast of 1,236 natural spring Chinook. We have no hatchery production of spring Chinook in the Chehalis Basin. Fall Chinook, this is a terminal run size, or number of fish crossing the bar, 11,144 natural fish and 2,189 hatchery fish, and you see the total there. For coho, this has been updated since the Grays Harbor Willapa Bay forecast meeting. These are projected terminal forecasts based on the middle option ocean run conducted with that model. So it's 43,222 coho crossing the bar there, and that includes South Bay production in the natural there, and 26,600 hatchery fish, once again including that South Bay or net pen production, for a total of just shy of 70,000. That's the Chehalis Basin. For the Hump Tulips Basin, fall Chinook, 3,857 natural fish, 4,683 hatchery. Fall Chinook to the Hump Tulips Basin, about 8,500 total. Once again, same as on the Grays Harbor side, this is a projected terminal run size of coho to the bay using the middle option out of those ocean fishery options. 3,606 natural fish and 11,180 hatchery fish, for a total just short of 15,000. The predicted run or projected run terminal run size of Grays Harbor chum in the aggregate is 30,324 natural fish and 2,325 hatchery fish, for a total of just over 32,500. So moving forward to our management objectives here on slide 13, for spring Chinook, with that forecast being that forecast of 1,236 being below the escapement objective, we're putting forth no directed recreational fishery on spring Chinook for the 2020 season. In terms of natural origin fall Chinook, on the Chehalis side, our management objective is to meet the escapement goal of 9,573 natural spawners. On the hump tulip side for fall Chinook, since our forecasted abundance is below 110% of this goal of 3,573 natural spawners, WDFW managed fisheries will be limited to less or equal to a 5% impact. Moving on to slide 14, for natural origin fall coho on the Chehalis side, our management objective will be to meet the escapement goal of 28,506 naturally spawning coho. For the hump tulip side, we have not achieved the goal 3 out of the last 5 years. That goal is 6,894 fish. We're not even projecting a terminal run size that would be in exceedance of this number. So we're under to begin with. And so we're limiting fisheries to a less than 5% WDFW managed impact rate on hump tulips fall coho. For Grays Harbor fall chum, our management objective is to meet the escapement goal of 21,000 naturally spawning chum. So moving forward, just to the last slide here, while this meeting tonight is an opportunity for you folks to provide us with some fishery suggestions and comments for the Grays Harbor North of Falcon process, it is not your only opportunity to do so. By following this link here, you can go to a public comments. You can follow this link to the North of Falcon page, and then on that there's another link to a public comment section. There you can provide some public comment specific to Grays Harbor in the coastal fisheries section of that web page. You can also provide comments for Willapa Bay or other areas throughout the state related to the North of Falcon process. Or you can always send stuff in to us specific to Grays Harbor here at this Grays Harbor at dfw.wa.gov email address. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Mike Sharp to walk us through the model that he's prepared for this evening.
Hello all. Hope this cyber meeting finds you well and healthy. It is kind of strange, and I don't have a gigantic wall screen to project the model up on, so we're gonna have to do it a different way this year. I'm just gonna run through, there was a summary of the model posted on the website, and so I'm just going to run through the model real quick to explain what was included in that model run. So it shouldn't take me very long. For those that don't have a computer screen, first piece I'm going through is just reviewing the fishing schedules that were in the model, and then I will go over to the summary table and talk about the numbers that the model produced. So with that, what's on the screen here is basically, it's the same seasons that we had last year. The Bay had during September 16th through November 30th in the east part of the Bay, 2 fish bag release Chinook. We had a mark selective fishery in the North Bay that began August 1st and ran through September 15th. It was a 1 fish bag. In the Chehalis system, we opened up, I think it was the lower part of the Chehalis, opened September 16th and ran through the end of December. 2 fish bag release Chinook. And then pretty much everywhere else, we went October 1st through December 31st with the 2 fish bag release Chinook. So that was pretty consistent all the way through, except for Skookumchuck and Newaukum. Those opened a couple of weeks later to provide a little extra protection for spring Chinook that spawn up there. And on the hump tulips, we started the season the month of September with a 2 fish bag. It was mark selective for both Chinook and coho. Beginning October 1st through November, we dropped it to a 1 fish bag. And then in December, we went through the month of December with one fish bag, but then release all Chinook. And then on the commercial side, we had 4 days, 4 12-hour days during weeks 43 and 44, which are roughly October, the last couple of weeks in October. And then we had 2 12-hour days over in 2C, which was middle October, and I think the first week in November. So that's what the model is based on. And so now going over to the summary page, I won't talk about the forecast because Chad already covered those, but for Chehalis natural Chinook, there was a surplus of almost 1,400 fish. And of that, there were 696 that were the WDFW share of that 50% surplus, harvestable numbers. So the model as it stands shows that we would harvest 552. So that tells us that as the model stands now, we're meeting the objective of not going over our harvestable number. But you'll notice that the escapement doesn't, it's in red, so we're not achieving that 97.53. I'll also say that the Quinn harvest numbers are kind of a predicted number based on last year's schedule with this year's forecasts, because they provide us a model later on. Those certainly will change. So just keep that in mind when you see some of these red numbers. So if I move over, okay, we'll just stick with Chinook. So on our Chehalis side, if we keep within our share, we're meeting our objective. On the Hump Tulip side, forecast is pretty small, and we have a 142 harvestable surplus, although our management objective here is to make sure we stay under the 5%. Let me make sure I got my brain on right. Yep. I have not developed or formatted this part of the model at this time because we've never had to deal with the hump tulips at a 5% or less. But if you look where I'm circling the cursor, it says 5.86. So as the model stands, we are over that objective by 0.86%. So we will have to do some sort of adjustments to get that down to 5%. And you also notice that we are a little bit over our share. And by correcting that, we should be down at or below 5%. And that's for Hump Tulip Chinook. For Chehalis natural Chinook, we have 73.58 that we have available to manage for. As the model currently sits, we have 60, we are projected to catch 64.02. Again, we are below our available harvest, but as you see that the escapement is still in the red. Hopefully that will be adjusted when we get an updated QIN schedule. So on the Hump Tulip side, we're already in the hole. We've got a goal of 68.94 and we've got a forecast of 3,600. Doesn't matter what we do, we don't have any share available. So our management objective is 5% or less. Currently, as the model stands, we're at 3.89%. That's located right here. So we are achieving that objective. Now I'll switch over to Chum. We have 58.25 as our available harvest. Current model as it is projects that we would catch 62.80. So we are over our share on that particular stock. So we probably need to do something to adjust that. And as you go all the way down, right now we're not projected to meet our escapement goal. And I just want to quickly run over to this side of the screen. I think this shows it a little more clearly. That right now we're 667 fish over the 50% available harvest as the model is set right now. So I wish I could show you guys all this in one great big screenshot, but I can't. And I think that's all I have at this point in time. So the bottom line and the key here is that we need to make an adjustment to achieve our objective on Hump Tulip's natural Chinook, which our total impacts are over by 0.86%, not a lot. And we do have to find some savings on our chum fisheries. Got to find where we can come up with 667 fish savings while we adjust our fishing seasons. So with that, Chad, are we available to go for questions, or do you have more to provide?
No, thank you for that, Mike. I think now, if you want to stop sharing your screen, we can go to questions and over to the public. Thank you.
Yeah, so we did have a few folks who joined in a little bit after we got started, so they may have missed my spiel, so I'm just going to give it one more time. Everyone is currently muted, but you do have the opportunity to raise your hand. So if you've joined via the computer, down at the bottom in that black dashboard area, there's a raise the hand icon. It's next to the Q&A. And then if you're dialed into a phone, you can press *9, and that will allow your hand to be raised. And Melissa's going to kind of help us manage the queue here. If folks have questions, yeah, feel free to go ahead and start raising those hands, and we'll call out the last 4 digits of the phone numbers or the names that are showing up that you've logged in as. So. And I'm not seeing any hands quite yet, but I do know that it can take a little while to kind of figure things out. All right, I've got Dave Hamilton first up here.
Well, Ben's everybody was still sitting there looking at it. I thought I'd break the ice for you. As for Mike, I seen your numbers, and I cheat because I got the other model, the whole thing that I can look at, and is locked up on the Quinn, so I can't be extraordinarily accurate. As you well know, it's a discussion between us. But when you look at the Quinn season and the Quinn numbers, and this doesn't affect the rec that much on the Chehalis side, but it does affect the commercial. There's no way that looking through Mr. Johnstone's size, that he can go in the water in the 3 weeks that he went last year. He's going to have to back down into the 2 weeks that were void for the Quinaults and that the NT nets went into. So, and then they will be bumping up against the chum limiter. Okay. And so that is going to be, it's going to make your projected seasons that you put up there off last year's model for the Quinn and NT to be pretty much almost like, it's not irrelevant, but they're not going to be accurate in the sense that it's going to change the math around, because the Quinaults, if they go in when they did last year, they're going to be like almost 2,600, something like that, fish before they even get down to the coho season much. Okay, so my question is exactly how can for the commercial side especially, but it'll transfer across to the hump, especially too with the quinolts, with that limited number of impacts, and the fact that the quinolts can and do use the aggregate if they want it, the hump and the chehalis, is exactly how are you going to make all these numbers mesh that kind of even people can recognize it just what you just presented.
Thanks for that, Dave. That's pretty astute. Don't want to guess right now at what the Quinn schedule may be. Typically, we receive that schedule from them during those Linwood meetings. So we're hoping that happens sometime next week. I know that staff have reached out to the technical staff this week of the Quinault Indian Nation to see if they have a fishery proposal to share with us yet. We have not received an answer to that so far today. We're going to have to make some changes. We're going to have to make some changes probably to the commercial schedule once we have the Quinn schedule in hand, and then we'll have a better idea of how we can move forward. And I'm hoping that we'll have that schedule in time for our advisory group meeting next Thursday. So I know that may not be the answer you're looking for, but that's the best answer I can give at this point in time.
Well, I think I just got unmuted. Am I unmuted? Is it going through?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, we can hear you, Dave.
Oh, okay. I heard the phone chirp and it was kind of mixed up with Chad. That's okay. Well, I understand exactly what you're saying, Chad, but my question was for Mike, but we'll go back to you. Is simply this, I realize the quinolts provide you with a season. That's absolutely 100% true. But for the pure as a work tool, there's no reason you can't look at the quinolts numbers and put it just by blanking out what was there, putting in another week to get a general idea of where the quinolts impacts are going to be, because they have the same impacts we do. You don't have to, for the purpose of the public, and particularly the commercials, you don't have to exactly wait to get the quinolts seasons, because they're only going to have so many impacts and they're only going to fit in so many places. It's not that you have to be accurate to the fish, but it can give people a general idea of what it's going to be depending left, right, wherever the quinolts finally come down. And it's just simply a tool that you could do to keep people, to make people aware of what the potential options and stuff are coming at us are. That's simple.
No, thanks for that, Dave. I appreciate that perspective. I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I don't want to guess or get out in front of or give people the false impression that we know exactly what sort of schedule they're going to propose. We could definitely guess at it, but I don't. Anyways, yeah. So, thanks for your comment.
All right, so the next person that has their hand raised is Francis. And Francis, if you can check and make sure that you are unmuted, I believe I have.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I think it'd be very instructive for everyone watching right now to at least have Mike or Chad go through that model and start manipulating some numbers where at least the state managed objectives can be met, staying within the 5% on the hump tulip side for Chinook, and making sure that we stay within our harvest shares for the other stocks that are there, the chum, the Chehalis Chinook, and also making sure we're staying within the the 5% on coho as we move things around. The coho objective on the hump tulips is already being met at the 3.89, but it would be great if we could do that. And would we be able to do that with the spreadsheet on the screen and still be able to ask these questions, or is that not possible?
I think that would be possible, Francis. I think I want to give some folks some opportunity to give us some suggestions. We're here tonight to listen to what folks value in terms of opportunity and their suggestions on where we may trim, so we can model that. If you have a fishery proposal or an idea about how we might get there, be happy to take a look at that, take it down, and maybe if no one else has any comments that they would like to provide, we could try and do that. But I wouldn't want to dominate everybody's time. It will take a little bit of time to make that happen.
Okay, I will just say this, that on the hump tulip side, where we have this overage past the 5% management objective, I mean the rec fishery is already ratcheted down, I believe, to a marked select fishery, 1 fish bag, as it is. That's what's modeled in there now. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes.
I don't know what else you're going to do to trim off other than, you're going to cut season. So the other place to look is to look at the Chinook impact that's there based on the commercial days that were deployed. And I can't see them right now, but I could probably pull something up on my phone. I have access to that model. Again, it's hard to speak without seeing the model up on the
Yeah,
screen.
no, I get that, Francis. What I'll do is I'll stop sharing, and Mike can go ahead and throw that model back and let him share his screen so you can look at that. Go ahead, Mike.
And for folks that are on the line while we're doing this, just a reminder, I know for those who are on the web, it's a little bit easier to see the raise the hand icon. The prompts for being, if you're logged in by phone, it's going to be *9 to raise your hand, and then you'll get a message saying you're unmuted. You also can unmute yourself via *6 as well. So just wanted to give those folks on the phone that prompt again. So if you have questions that we can get to after we've gone through a little bit of this model session, please don't be afraid to do so.
So I've got the model up. This is the hump tulip side. I think that's the pertinent information right there.
I only see 2 days of commercial fishing there.
That's what they had last year.
Okay, so looks like the Chinook impact is going to be greatest on the October 20 day. What happens if you zero that out?
Well, you lose 98 of that Chinook impact.
And where does that put us?
Well, if we only have 84 to worry about, that takes care of the problem, turns everything green. We're at 3.32.
I'll put that in as a fishery proposal, please.
Mike, can you show everybody what that means in terms of coho as well, and if there's any chum savings, or just kind of give us the whole picture there?
So I just removed that 1 day. I'll put it back. When I get over here to, you're not going to get much savings on coho. So we go from, so you're going to save 34 coho and 105 chum. So if we put that back to 0, we're still 562 chum over our share. Sorry, I'm doing some notes here. That's why you're seeing me move back and forth. Just wanted to make sure I got the weeks correct.
So Francis, I just want to make sure that we check in with you and understand your proposal correctly. Your proposal as it stands right now is just to remove that 1 day of commercial opportunity on the hump tulip side. Would that be
Well,
correct?
that's a beginning. So,
Okay.
but now we're still like 500 and some chum short. You're not going to get that 500 savings out of the rec fishery, even if you close the whole rec fishery.
You're not going to get it on the hump tulip side.
You're not going to get. We don't keep that many chum. They're not a desirable species to keep. So, you're left with.
So what you see now is basically the Chehalis side, and this is the chum. So column S is the chum impacts, and you can see we're still there. We go. If it'll stay there,
There's potential to save chum on the Chehalis side because that's an aggregate goal. That's not necessarily out of
exactly. But I'm just showing you where you have to go to get them. You can't get them off the hump tulip side. It has to be the Chehalis side.
Well, you could get them off the hump tulip side
No, you can't.
a little bit. No, what's your savings if you zero out that second day of commercial fishing?
12 fish.
12 fish. Okay, you're not going to get them. So I'll leave my proposal where it's at on the hump tulip side.
Certainly.
That's a huge move from where we were at. We turned a red box green by removing 1 day.
Yes.
I don't think you have the power to gain that savings on the rec side on Chinook.
No, and while we're chatting, I'm going to show you where the chum impacts occur in the sport fishery. So this right here, it's pretty small. Let me boost it up in size. This is the 35 harvest out of the marine area. Let me get over a little bit here. And then here is all of the chum, predicted chum harvest. Where we see most of it is on the Satsa. You got a little bit out of hump tulips. So if you want to make some savings through the rec side, I would think that this is where I would kind of start things. Maybe these two areas. Just making a suggestion. So now I'll go back to the chum planning model. So these are the commercial impacts. This is the marine area impacts. And this is the in-river sport impacts.
Duly noted.
Okay, Francis, I think we got your proposal. Is there anybody else who would like to ask a question, have a comment, or submit a fishery proposal? Please just, you can click on your hand there for those who are online, or I don't remember, I think it's *9 or something for you who are on the phone. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it looks like that's correct about *9 for raising hand on the phone. And we've got Bob Lake has his hand raised. So I'm going to go ahead here and see if we can get Bob unmuted.
You got me unmuted?
I can hear you, Bob.
Oh, good. Can everybody else?
Yes, I
I'm
think
kind of
so.
amazed. Hey, Chad, you still there?
Yes, I am, Bob.
Hey, I'm kind of amazed. Yeah, we're looking at keep cutting the commercial fishery down, when in fact, the coho and stuff, it's just totally ridiculous, because I'm going to remind you guys that the commercial people are fishing for the consumers, period. And we keep getting cut back. Every time we need to extra fish here and there, it's coming out of the commercial side. Why in the hell don't we cut the recreational side back?
Bob, we're here to listen to proposals. If you'd like to submit one, I wouldn't say
I wanna-
that was
okay.
Francis's proposal. So if you have one, we're here to
Okay,
listen.
let's take and whittle down the recreational fishery then. Starting out with the Chinook side.
Okay, Mike, can you scroll the model over? I mean, do you have something specific in mind, Bob?
Well, let's just cut those numbers back to turn around and not, I mean, we don't have, on the commercial side, there's not enough days to make a hell of a lot of difference. I'm thinking we're looking at a total of, was it 8 or 10 days that we had from your original?
Um,
So,
It was 4 days and 2 statistical weeks back to back on the Chehalis side. And Mike, can you go ahead and put the 1 day back in here on the hump tulips to show Bob? And then, so we put that fishery back in, Bob. Now we need to come,
now that was that week, what week was that?
42.
Mike, can you, okay.
42 is, okay, that's what I was wondering. I didn't see that, and
Yeah.
I can't manipulate on the hump side. So, but now we're looking at 1 full day on some of this stuff here and 3/4 of a day. So on that 1 full day, is that a 24-hour day or what?
I believe that was a 12-hour day.
Why is it showing 1.00 then? It should be 0.50.
Because it's based on a 12-hour day fisheries. That's why it's blue. So if
Well,
you see,
thanks for telling me, because I sure as hell didn't know that.
you're welcome.
Well, I mean, it just, but the full day is 1 and a half day is 0.5.
Half a day has always been 0.75. If you're based on a 12 or if you're based on a 24-hour fishery, if your harvest impact rate is based on a 24-hour fishery, and then you go to a 12-hour fishery, we make the assumption that most of the fish are caught during the first part of that 24 hours. So we reduce that down by 3/4, or no, by a quarter, sorry. So
Well,
we
that's
don't,
ridiculous.
don't
I'll
give
tell
you
you why.
50%.
That's ridiculous because
It's
on
been the way I've
on the
done
Chinook
it
side
since
of
I've
it,
been here.
on the Chinook side of it, we catch more fish Chinook in the dark than we do in the daylight. So you guys are using 3/4. That's a real bogus number. I mean, get things back to reality. If you're going to give us a half a day, leave it at a half a day, not no 3/4 of a day, because we're not fishing in the nighttime.
Thanks for your comment.
Well, look at it realistically. That's what, but every time there's a cutback, you got us whittled down to nothing again. And then we got that 4 deal crap that, they got shoved down our throats there on the Chehalis side as well as the hump, that we can't fish if the tribes fish. And like I say, and I'd also like to state, why in the hell don't we look at a fishery in 2B? B as in boy or Bob.
Sorry, when we're not face to face, it's hard to know who's going to respond to which question.
Yeah.
Well,
We
the
had this
reason is I'm
conversation
asking because
last year.
that's the 2B fishery is part of our statute that the legislature drew up 30 years ago, 25 years ago.
You're free to submit that as a proposal, Bob. As we said, we're here to listen and to take fishery suggestions. We'll take those back and model those and see how they meet against the management objectives we have for this year. And then we'll come back and refine those in the advisory group meeting later this week.
Can you get us a printout on that then, Chad, prior to the meeting, a few days before the meeting, please?
We'll endeavor to get those models together and out along with a 1-page summary as soon as we possibly can get that work done, Bob.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it, because this is, I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me because I wasn't able to print it off in the regular spreadsheet manner. And also I'm looking at this Zoom deal, and I can't switch screens for some whatever reason. Okay, so
Yep, no, that totally makes sense, Bob. It looks like we've got someone else who has also just raised their hand. I've got a phone number ending in 8793. And let's see if we can hear their comment.
This is person 8793.
Hi
Andy.
to Andy. Thank you for stating your name.
Selma. Yeah, now I'm assigning number 2. That's good. Do we have a tribal schedule yet?
No.
No, we do not, Andy. We don't
How can we
typically.
I get it, I know. So I'm just saying, how can you possibly even be talking about any commercial fishery right now? I mean, that's just a hypothetical. So to sit there and say we were going to add a day to a commercial fishery or take this day away, or you don't even know what our season is. You can't even put up a hypothetical yet because you don't know the tribal schedule. So you don't know what you're going to save or where you're going to save it, you gain, or without the tribal schedule, it's a moot point to even talk about a commercial schedule at this point in time.
Okay, Andy, thanks for that.
All right. Do we have anybody else? Just as a reminder, if you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. And looks like we have another thought from Dave Hamilton. One moment.
Like to mirror Andy's thoughts right there. I brought him up earlier before. Chad, I think you can understand what Andy's saying right there. And I think we have a difference between us on the outside and you on the inside of what you can or cannot do. But on the proposal side, I would like to bring forth consideration one thing on the rec side, and it's simply that the Wynoochee, which has a 2-bag limit, we should actively consider it a 1-bag limit. The Wynoochee has no hatchery fish at the present. And of all the streams, other than possibly the Wishkah, it is the most vulnerable to being overfished if the run forecast comes in under what it's supposed to be. And with the run forecast we have and the opportunity in the bay and the main river and like the Satsop and the other ones, I think it would be prudent to put the 1-bag limit in the proposal for the Wynoochee because it's just a common sense conservation matter. And that's it for now.
Okay, thank you for that suggestion, Dave. We'll definitely get that noted and work on a model run for our next meeting that would show that. Mike, if we don't have anybody else who has a fishery suggestion, if you want to take a look at model. We
have another person, Norm, and then should be unmuted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Chad. Have they even determined what ocean option are we using on the outside to predict what's coming on over the bar?
Thank you for that question, Norm. Right now, we are using the middle ocean option in terms of our coho forecast across the bar.
And okay, so it's my understanding that the ocean option may not be determined until you get to Vancouver.
That is correct. That at that April meeting of the PFMC is where the final ocean option will be proposed.
And so, I guess my concern is that to use the vernacular of a friend of mine that sometimes listens in here, I'm bringing a rock to throw in the pond. I'm bringing your rock when we really don't know where we're at. And we won't know until the first week of April.
Yep, that is the case, Norm, and that's the case every year. We usually, throughout the North of Falcon process here, traditionally in these coastal meetings, have used the middle option as a placeholder to try and get a fishery proposal together.
Okay, that's all. I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to get there.
Yep. Thanks, Norm. All right. Do we have anyone else on their computers or on the phone? All right. Oh, we've got one more thought from Bob Blake.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you, Bob.
Hey, Chad?
Yes, Bob.
Hey, when can we expect to get the schedule from the Quinaults?
Typically, every year, at least in the years that I've been here, we get a Quinault schedule at Linwood, and that happens next week. It will be prior to our advisory group meeting. Our advisory group meeting is scheduled for next Thursday. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting, we have our technical staff has already reached out to Quinault Indian Nation technical staff earlier this week to see if they have fishery inputs for us, and they do not at this point in time. So we're working on that. We're trying as hard as we can to get them.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. You know, and I notice here that there's not a big rush of people wanting to get their hands up and getting suggestions. And as I mentioned during the presentation, while this is an opportunity for you folks to talk with us, you can also submit comments throughout the North of Falcon process by going to the North of Falcon website on the DFW webpage as well and submit your comments there.
We have another person, Bill Osborne, that would like to speak, and I'm going to unmute you. Bill, you are able to speak.
Hey, Bill, can you hear us? We can't hear you. You want to?
Because I'm not on the phone. You can't chat?
Oh, I can hear you. Hi, Bill. We just heard you for a second.
All I want to know about is the jack season on the Chehalis. That wasn't mentioned at all.
I can take that, Chad.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
It is, the seasons in the model are exactly the same as they were last year. So
Okay.
it does include that jack fishery.
Okay,
Starts August 1st.
thank you.
So can I kind of make one more comment for the group before it sounds like we're kind of winding down? There's been several comments about how can we move forward? We don't know what the Quinault schedule is. We do know what our policy guidance are, and we do know what our shares are. That's the things those are the things we need to focus on when you guys think about what you deem important as we move forward. We need your suggestions. That's what we're looking for, your suggestions. We do need to make a cut on hump tulips, natural Chinook, and we do need to make a little bit of a cut in chum. We know what our shares are. If we stay within our shares and we meet our policy guidance, that's what we're keying in on. That's why we're making proposals, and that's why we have these meetings early on, so that we can get an idea of what you guys feel are important. So I guess in the next few weeks, please keep that in mind as you think about ideas and then forward those to us.
We have another person that would like to provide comment. Francis, I'm going to unmute you, and you should be able to speak, Francis.
Unmuting myself. Am I on?
Yes.
Just following up on what Mike said, there are things that we can look at to stay within our own policy guidance and to stay within our treaty share, non-treaty share. Share and share alike. It's the same number, it's half. So if we could please go to Chehalis, we can look at some ways to maybe save some chum, because that's the only other big red box that's remaining here. Just trying to be pragmatic here, get the most out of this meeting as we can. Let's look at places where we could possibly save some chum. Okay.
So remember, I put the day back into the
Correct.
UC side, so that was,
I think that's a reasonable
that's 105 fish.
adjustment given where the savings are. You need to save on the Chinook, natural Chinook on the hump tulip side. With one minor adjustment, you turn one box green.
I'll go ahead and do that for the sake of just kind of looking at options. So again, green down there, green there.
And now we're to like it was 500 and some, 560. So freshwater sport has the potential, a pool of potential savings of 653 fish based on that.
Yes.
I mean, if you zeroed it out, if you said no chum retention, you could do that. I don't know that we would want to shoulder all of that conservation burden.
There still might be, because you're still going to have a 10% release mortality. With chum, that might even be way smaller.
I see.
But we don't have.
So you would assume that the fish would be caught and you're going to save 10% of them.
So yeah, basically you're still looking at 63. So my brain.
Still way shy. So
actually, no, you're not going to be that far shy. Give me a second. So that would be 562. No, what am I doing here? Minus.
If you're only going to get a 10% savings by releasing them, is that what we're saying?
No, what he's saying, Francis, is you would get you would only get 10% of that number. You would assume the 653 would be encounters, and you would apply a 10% release mortality to them. So your overall impact
90%,
53 to 65.
So you would actually zero it out. You would have about 26 fish remaining in the green.
26 fish to the green. I'm not proposing that the racks shoulder all of that conservation burden, but I'm just saying that there is room for us to give a little bit. But you can look at the days there. Look at your maximum chum impact days on the commercial side. Took out just one day in the high week, which would be week. Oh, can't quite see it. It's the first of the two weeks.
Let's just throw this in there. You take out one day in the second week is all you need to do. And let me just make sure I got, yeah.
And you're green.
And you're green. So basically the commercial fishery shouldered the entire burden.
Okay, we just showed two scenarios where one sector could shoulder all of the burden by either giving up chum retention entirely on the rec side, or we could have the commercials give up 1 day of their 8 days. So I would propose doing something that there's a little give on both sides in the spirit of waving the proverbial olive branch, so we're not accused of going after the commercial fishery every time this happens. It's not exactly true, contrary to what another speaker said earlier. The recs have given up lots of fisheries along the way too. So let's go back to that other table where he had it broke out on the tribs. Hump tulips, excuse me, Wainuchi, Satsa.
So I have played around with this a little bit. And I'm not sure how much I want to get into this because it's a little time consuming. Because I could never figure out how to make this part of the model friendly. But I can turn part of the SATs up mark selective. As you look here.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Maybe we got some other people who'd like to give some comment. I think we've got Francis's proposal noted. We'll work on a modeled option, and like I mentioned earlier, we'll get those back out to folks as soon as we possibly can.
I'm just hoping that was instructive for folks to see if they could see it on the computer. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
The next person we have is Dave. I'm going to allow you to talk.
I hate to monopolize things. Mike, could you go to the tribal schedule? Okay, Chehalis side. Now, okay, so everybody can understand what I've been talking about, the model. Mike, what is our impact number, the share size, 600 some this year for each side?
for Chinook, yes.
Yes.
So you know, Dave, where we had a season or a schedule from last year, those numbers are manipulatable.
I understand that. I just want to make that it's not so much what we're talking about here. Everybody's talking about the weeks and everything else. The quinolts are going to be limited, just like we are, to the impact number. So if you disregard the hatchery or whatever, the hatchery especially, because it's like a bonus, and go to the wild Chinook. In week 41, they're 734. Right there, they're already over their share for this year. Next week is 956. Week after that is 477. The weeks that Francis was talking about for the NT nets is the 2 blank weeks. One, and then down below you see the chum come back for the quinolts, and they're all going to be limited around 5, whatever the number was. So when you look at these numbers and you start proposing seasons like Francis just was, you need to understand the quinolts are going to be limited by Chinook impacts because they're non-selective, just as our gill netters are. And that means those 3 weeks that we had for last year, they don't fit, okay? And that means the 2 blank weeks that the gill netters were in last year come into question, just like Andy was trying to say, is without being able to just simply put the quinolts were, say the quinolts didn't fish week 40, they didn't fish week 41, they went in week 42, okay? That number is going to vary with the new data and stuff, but this is just to give you an idea. And then what happens when they go in week 43 or week 44, or if they went in 2 days instead of 3 days? If they go in 2 days, the gill netters can get 1 day, but then they got the Chinook problem. So what I'm simply saying is everybody's looking at this and trying to propose. You must understand these numbers from last season are going to, on the Quinault Nation, is going to be limited because the impact number is far less allowable, and then you're going to bump into your chum numbers in week 45 for the NT nets. depending what the Quinaults did. It's good they fished 4 days a week last year. So I'm just doing this so people have to understand is I understand the sincerity of everybody, but I need to echo Andy is simply this, is the inability to move things around to get a general gist of the flow of everything makes it pretty impossible. Like Francis is trying to take away the rec portion and this and that to balance it out. I applaud that. The problem with it is they are not, the numbers say they cannot fish where they fished last year. Okay, so that 5-week window between week 40 and week 45, that's going to just move all over the place. It's not going to affect the rec that much. And I understand trying to fit the commercials in, but you're trying to fit the commercials in a window without being able to manipulate those numbers. And it's just like playing pin a tail on a donkey. That's all it is. And that's it, guys.
Thanks for your comment, Dave. Does anybody else have any fishery suggestions they'd like to talk about tonight? I mean, I guess I will respond to that a little bit. I understand what you're saying, Dave. I really do. But we've got to assume, just like we always do, that the Quinaults are going to stay to their share. And typically that's what happens. I think Mike stated it very well earlier. We know what our shares are. We know we know what our management objectives are, and we've still got to put some proposals out there that meet those boxes. The Quinaults are also going to be looking for us to share a proposal with them, and we need to do that at the same time they're sharing that proposal with us. So the better we are, the quicker we can share that proposal or where we think we might be, might help us get that Quinn schedule. I appreciate the comment. We're definitely, gonna have to take a look at the Quinn schedule before we can really manipulate the commercial schedule too much. We have policy language that comes into play in terms of the 4-3 that constrains or provides opportunity for the commercial fishery, depending on what that Quinn schedule looks like. With that being said, we can still look at some recreational proposals. We can try and think about what some commercial days may look like, but yeah, it is difficult to work with the commercial schedule until we know what the Quinn schedule is. Yeah, that's a fact.
Francis has another comment. I'm gonna allow to talk. Francis, you should be unmuted.
Okay,
Yes.
so I don't want to alienate any one single tributary, but I think something the sports can throw up for some chum savings is to put something in the 2-fish bag that says no more than 1 chum. That would prevent anybody from harvesting chum preferentially, using their entire 2-fish bag for chum. Some people like to harvest chum just to get the eggs. Some people like to eat chum. They don't like an oily salmon. It's a cultural preference for some people, but you could throw that out there. On the recreational side, it's good for conservation. You haven't singled out any one area or tributary to say no, chum are off limits here, but one basin over, drive 12 miles, and you can bonk 2 in the other system. So I think I would offer that and see what kind of savings you can get from the sports side as a potential fishery proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Francis. We'll get that noted and work on getting that modeled. Anybody else I saw earlier? There was a hand that got lowered. Maybe they left the meeting.
Norm would like to speak. And I did see that. Norm, you should be unmuted.
Yeah, Chad, my question is, on what the governor just declared yesterday, are we going to have the staff in the field to be able to have a salmon fishing season? I know we're facing hatchery challenges right now in clipping. We may be facing challenges in other areas in putting fish checkers at the docks, depending on how long this goes. Is there any word from the department where we're at?
Thank you, Norm. I think I got a few quick comments, and then I see our regional fish program manager is raising his hand, and I'll let him. Right now, we've got a 2-week stay at home, stay healthy order out of the governor's office. We don't know how long this is going to last. This situation is very dynamic. I think there possibly could be some risk here, depending on how long this situation continues. I think we're fish program is evaluating that right now. I don't know of any fishery closures that I could speak to today, right now, as a result of this, but I know it's something we're definitely taking a look at. I know that's not a great answer, but there's gonna, this is a rapidly evolving situation, and I hope to have some more information for you folks moving forward, but I think that's about all I can give right now. Can we go ahead and let James, James, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, hey everybody. Yeah, so what Chad said, I would echo. He's right on the mark, and I think specifically in the fact that every single day is a bit of a new adventure for us right now, and we're in uncharted waters. But what we do know is, if we think about fisheries into the future, if we have fisheries that are dependent on monitoring, so we can think of those that are taking place in the face of ESA listed species, or those that require monitoring. Many of our mark selective fisheries, where we have co-manager agreements, are at risk when we remove those essential staff from the field. So, we've got 24 hours, I think, maybe 2 hours ago, so maybe 22 hours until a lot of these decisions are made about who is allowed to still come to work and who isn't, and then what the response of fisheries management would be to those. So in the short term, we're thinking about Puget Sound fisheries and coastal steelhead fisheries. So of course that'd be in the Chehalis and Grace Harbor area. But it's sort of day to day right now. So I don't think it changes the way we should plan our North of Falcon fisheries right now.
Thank you for that clarity, James. I appreciate that.
I see Francis has another comment. Allowed to talk.
Don't go away, James. Looking for just a little more clarity. I heard creel checkers on the ground. I heard essential. So I think what's really important, someone's got to make a decision on whether or not these people are essential, and not so much for the North of Falcon fisheries that we're planning now, because most of these are in the fall, and hopefully the 2-week order will not be much more than 2 weeks, and hopefully it's not 4 or 5 months down the line that we still can't put people in the field. But as a question about spring Chinook, we have 2 prime weeks of spring Chinook left on the Columbia. Are we going to put creel checkers on the ground for the next 2 weeks? Are they essential?
Yeah, I can answer that.
If you can't answer that today, I mean, that's something that the department really needs to emphasize to the governor for some clarity. Okay.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm new to Zoom here, but yeah, so we do have clarity for that. So today at 4 o'clock, we heard from our director on what was deemed essential and what was not. Creel checkers are not deemed essential based on communication from the governor's office to the director to interpret what this order meant for our staff. When you think of field staff at Fish and Wildlife this time of year, you should think of stream surveyors. You should think of folks operating smolt traps, creel surveyors, and then of course, folks operating hatchery facilities, stocking and ad clipping and things like that. Of all those categories there, the only folks that were deemed essential that will remain in the field are those involved in hatchery operations. So they called this animal husbandry. And so there was a focus in the governor's order on animal husbandry and agriculture. So the idea was kind of feeding the masses. Those jobs were considered essential. So that means we do know that creel surveyors today, they have been, determined non-essential. So we don't know if that definition will change over the next couple weeks, when the dust settles here and folks have longer discussions with the governor. And we also don't know what the response to fisheries will be associated with that. And so right now, with the fisheries that are going on today, the thought is from Fish and Wildlife is that we're closing all of our public access sites. And then we didn't interpret from the governor's order that fishing was not allowed. And there's pretty clear language in there about, recreating and things like that, remaining the 6-foot distance from each other. But he did not call out fisheries. So, we're hoping that if folks follow the governor's order and kind of behave consistent with it, they'll stay home. And if they do go fishing, it's restricted to off their dock at their house or in the lake that they can walk to nearby. So right now, the Department of Fish and Wildlife has not responded to the governor's order by closing any fisheries. The one exception, I guess I should say, I think folks have followed the razor clam closure, and that wasn't response to this governor's order, right? That was a public health issue associated with the virus and closures from counties on the coast. So a lot of moving pieces there. I hope I helped clear some of that up.
Yeah, thank you for that, James. And I see Ron has something to add.
I do. Good evening, everybody. I just want to make sure that everybody understands some of the thought process that we've gone through in the department as we contemplate all of our activities. Our number one priority is to our staff and their safety. We've had public access to our hatcheries closed for the last week and a half or so. And we're trying to protect those essential staff so that we have resources into the future and we're not dependent on looking elsewhere for product, either trout or salmon, for our future sustainable opportunities. So the second, after we look at our staff safety, we look at how do we comply with what the governor's asked us to do. We've been working on this for several weeks, and I think James did a great job, as did Chad, in trying to describe all of that. And we have continued conversations to have, but we've talked to tribes within the Northwest Indian Fish Commission. We'll talk to the Columbia River tribes tomorrow. We've talked to Oregon today. And continue to talk to the governor's office to assure that we're trying to meet the objectives that the governor put out for all of Washingtonians.
Thank you, Ron. I'm sure everybody appreciates your comments. Thank you. So does anybody else have any other questions, comments, fishery suggestions? We still got about a half an hour left on our time. Okay, I'm not really seeing any hands raised, so I'll just remind folks one more time, don't feel like this is the only opportunity you have to provide fishery suggestions. You can send them into the Grays Harbor at dfw.wa this email address here, Grays Harbor at dfw.wa.gov. Those come directly to Mike. You can also submit your comments using the dfw.wa.gov North of Falcon webpage. Lots of cool information you can see on that website. Meeting schedules, meeting materials for all the North of Falcon meetings, and a variety of different things. So appreciate everybody joining tonight and working through the first Zoom meeting. I personally think it went pretty well. You know, I understand, you know, folks like to be able to see the whole model and really work through the model, but given the circumstances, I thought this went really well. Appreciate all the comments and fishery suggestions that we've gotten so far tonight. And we'll go ahead and start working on modeling some of those and getting those back out to the group, along with a kind of a one-page summary in how those either meet or don't meet the management objectives. We'll keep working on trying to get a Quinault schedule. And as soon as we have that, we'll get that information out to you folks once we see what they have proposed for this year. And thank you all for joining, and be safe, be healthy. And we'll have our next meeting Thursday via conference call, next Thursday.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, it looks like we got one. Yeah.
Chad, I just want to say thanks.
Nope. Thanks, James.
All right.